now turn to the big story for some hurricane preparedness and safety tips. In light of the recent flash flooding experienced by the British Virgin Islands, particularly the main island of Tortola, we thought it was imperative to remind residents about the importance of hurricane preparedness, especially as we're in the middle of the 2017 hurricane season. To give me and yourself some pointers, I'm here with the former disaster coordinator of the Red Cross, Mr. Theodore John. Mr. John, thank you very much for agreeing to speak with me. Now, the hurricane season, unfortunately, is already upon us, and some of us have gotten a taste of what 2017 has to deliver. Foremost in your mind, what should persons be cognizant of at this point, especially if they haven't already begun, getting on their P's and Q's?
Well, ideally, preparing for a hurricane or the hurricane season means preparing before. You have to make sure that you have your family disaster plan, have your disaster kit with important items in them, including medicine and basic sanitary needs. Also, you want to make sure that you have supplies for at least 3 days in case there's a power outage, or the roads are closed off, or you're isolated from the stores and whatever supplies you may need.
What type of supplies? What are the priority supplies that I should have?
Well,
I know tin foods.
Yeah, you definitely need the food that don't spoil quickly. You need water, definitely, water for consumption, and water for washing, taking showers and so forth, which you want to maximize, or
Don't be too generous with yourself and others.
Yeah, those are some basic tips. Make sure that you have your first aid supplies in case there's a medical emergency you can deal with.
And just in case some persons can't afford your pre-packaged first aid kit, what are some of the items that they can pull together that would be handy should a minor medical emergency arise?
Yeah, basic things, and you can improvise as well. You can get the prepared things like gauze and those kind of things.
Alcohol.
Or you can make them out of old
rubbing alcohol,
Dettol and those things to try to sanitize areas that are affected. Basic things like that. Things to bandage, definitely. You might want to consider medicine if you are on prescribed drugs. Make sure you get a supply before, because after you may not be guaranteed that there'll be immediate supplies. So make sure you have those things on hand, especially those who are diabetic. The insulin, and making sure that you have ice to keep them at a certain temperature. So those are things that you may want to consider.
What are some of the, before you go on, what are some of the over-the-counter items that we should stock up on? I know painkillers for one, just in case something happens. What else would you advise that persons get ready to get?
Yeah, anything dealing with the respiratory system, for colds, coughs. If you are asthmatic, you want to make sure that you have your asthmatic pumps that are very important. So basic things like that, cleaning supplies.
What are persons the best advice to do to ensure that they are safe, their relatives, families are safe?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we monitor any weather systems that are in the area. We want to look on to DDM's website, or listen to the radio, television if electricity is available. So that's knowing what's going on.
Getting a radio, a battery-powered radio to be exact, backup, just in case electricity goes.
You need to know what's happening in order to deal with what may happen. So we also must ensure that we do not venture outdoors unless it's absolutely necessary. And we've been having problems with that recently with the flooding and the damage, where people are out there and they're either causing more harm to themselves or interfering with the cleanup process and putting emergency personnel at risk as well. So make sure that you stay indoors as much as possible. do not venture outside. If you're going to an area that has been inundated with water, mud, whatever, make sure you're wearing boots to protect yourself against any contaminated water. So those are things you want to do to protect yourself. You know, turn off the electricity at the switchboard to make sure that there's no potential for electrocution.
And speaking of water contamination, especially at the stage where we're at in the BVI, where the flooding has passed, but then the damage that it has left behind and the unsafe environment in some areas, what's the advice there? Because then now persons are at risk for waterborne illnesses, environmental illnesses such as mosquito viruses. What's the advice there in terms of what to do, what not to do?
Well, in the case of contaminated water, you want to make sure that you don't consume that. If for some reason you have to consume water you caught in a cistern or whatever, make sure you boil it before consuming, or even using it to wash off. Make sure that you do not allow children to, splash around, because it's fun. We all love to splash in water. We may drive through and be careful with the people on the sideways. Splashing water onto them can cause problems as well. So make sure that you do not venture into water, because sometimes you don't even know what's under there or what's in there. So that's a very important point to note.
Going back to the issue of safety, in terms of the safety of infrastructure, how much can persons do there in terms of preparing for a possible onslaught, be it business or especially residences?
Yeah, there's a lot we can do in terms of knowing the area itself, knowing the hazards, the potential for threat, making sure that things that are waste are thrown away quickly. We don't want to leave things that can cause problems. I know some people throw things into the waterways, which is something that we definitely do not want, because that eventually leads down to the sea. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't make it there, that means it's blocking the water from going there. So I think that caused a lot of problems in a lot of areas, including here at King Island Bay. We want to make sure that we do not obstruct the waterways as much as possible. The water has to get somewhere, and if it doesn't, then it'll find a way. So when we're building, we have to be mindful of where the water goes and channel it appropriately, and build structures that would sustain the flow of water, because water is a powerful force.
Mm-hmm. And then it comes down to as well reinforcing as much as possible, your building infrastructure, your windows, your doors, your roof, that may be leaking, the surrounding plants and trees that may be overhanging, etc., containing all of those.
I think DDM has been doing a wonderful job of educating through the HLSC college, having courses for builders and contractors. But we as well, we have to be educated as a lay people, what to do in the case of, these emergencies, to prepare for, what to do during and what to do after.
And then finally, at the end of the day, a lot of persons, they've worked hard for the little or a lot that they have, and especially for those persons who live in precarious areas, especially those areas that are close to or smack in the middle of some of these guts, they may not want to leave their possessions because they're fearful of not being able to rescue any of their belongings, or that they may be invaded by unscrupulous persons. What's the advice to those persons to get to higher or safer ground, even though they may not think much of that advice?
Yeah, definitely. If you're in harm's way, we recommend that you move out as quickly as possible, especially if something's going to happen overnight. The darkness creates another danger. So during the day, as much as possible, you want to evacuate your family. And if you're fearful that you're going to lose certain things, make sure that you have the documents stored in proper places, or you have a go bag where you have your important documents you can just grab and go with you. So I wouldn't recommend staying in a zone that has potential threats in flood zones, especially in places that we know historically floods and flood severely. We want to make sure that we educate the population. I know sometimes it goes against human nature to want to stick on, hold on, to be a superhero and save the day, save your property. But at the end of the day, your life is worth more than something material, and we definitely have to promote that and educate.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
John. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it there from Mr. Theodore John. He's a former disaster coordinator at the BVI Red Cross, reminding us of some of the crucial tips that we need to bear in mind as we're midway through the hurricane season and preparing for the unpredictability that looms as we head on down to November 30th.